Welcome to the Midnight Stories Club. Here, we don't chase sleep, we chase shadows. Each night, a tale is shared. Each tale darker than the last. Sit back. Light fades. The stories begin. Elias Thorne, that's my name. And this account, hammered out under flickering lamplight, is a necessity, a desperate anchor against the tide of disbelief washing over my own sanity. 3 times I've begun. 3 times the words twisted into paranoid ravings on the screen before vanishing under the delete key's relentless march. No more. This iteration stays a chronicle, stark and sequential. Perhaps the sheer linearity of fact will lend it credence. Perhaps. 6 weeks, a lifetime ago, measured in undisturbed sleep. The genesis was innocuous, buried within the steel and glass heart of the Meridian Tower downtown. 14th floor. Sterling and Vance auditors, my professional cage for 8 years. My particular cell, a corner office commanding views eastward toward the dawn, northward toward the sound. Those vast panes of glass, they became my obsession, the silent arbiters of my unraveling. It began as unsettling things often do, subtly. A Tuesday, perhaps? The clock read 7:15 a.m., my customary arrival time. Clara, stationed at the reception monolith, offered her practiced, impersonal nod as my keycard granted passage. The elevator ascended in vacant solemnity. The pre-9 a.m. hush of the tower was a solace I once cherished. But stepping toward my office, sanctuary no more, a discordant note struck. The east window, a sheer drop to the street below, stood ajar. 4 inches precisely, enough for the raw October air to bite. The insulated mug nearly leaped from my grasp. An absolute certainty settled cold in my gut. That window had been secured the previous evening. Locked. Sealed. A ritual as ingrained as locking one's own front door. I crossed the threshold, knelt by the casement. The latch mechanism gleamed, unmarred. It yielded smoothly to my touch. Closing it, clicking the lock home, I wrestled down the unease. By midday, I'd rationalized it away. Fatigue, a momentary lapse, an oversight, commonplace. The following dawn shattered that fragile rationalization. Same window. Same 4-inch gap breathing cold onto my carpet. This time, doubt fled. I knew. Hadn't I deliberately rattled the frame before leaving, double-checking the stubborn lock? Tremors ran through my hands as I secured it once more. Downstairs, in the building's bowels, I found maintenance. Gus, a man whose beard seemed to absorb ambient light, regarded my explanation with the profound skepticism usually reserved for alien abduction stories. "Can't happen, Mr. Thorne," he rumbled, scratching bristly territory. "Those units, sealed from the outside, safety regs, only ones in there after hours are the cleaners, and they ain't got keys for that." I pressed, insisted. He performed a meticulous, ultimately fruitless inspection. The lock remained stubbornly functional. Later, the cleaning supervisor swore her crew never touched the windows. Strict policy. A week bled into the next, each morning heralded by the same violation. Always the east window. Always those precise 4 inches. The chill seeped into my bones, a prelude to the deeper cold to come. My phone became an archive of architectural transgression, time-stamped photos of the defiant gap. We even rearranged the cleaning rota, their vacuum whine preceding my arrival. Useless. The window persisted in its silent rebellion. I understand the precipice upon which my credibility teeters. Believe me, numbers are my trade. Proof is my creed. Had a client presented such a narrative, I'd have mentally flagged them as unreliable, perhaps delusional. Yet, the evidence of my own senses was irrefutable. After 2 weeks of this mounting absurdity, I acquired a small weapon, a simple wireless security camera. Nestled amongst accounting manuals on my bookshelf, its unblinking eye trained on the offending window. That evening, the locking ritual was almost ceremonial. Checked, double-checked, triple-checked. Recording initiated. Sleep, predictably, was a fractured affair. The next morning, bypassing coffee, bypassing routine, I lunged for my laptop. The window, naturally, gaped open. My fingers, slick with sweat, fumbled the password. Playback. The timeline scrolled. 3 was AM. Stillness. 3:30 AM. Shadows unchanged. Then precisely at 4 hours AM, an audible click. Unseen forces actuated the lock. Slowly, deliberately, the heavy window pivoted outward. 4 inches. Silence reigned save the building's low hum. No spectral figures, no Hollywood theatrics, just physics unraveling, causality fraying at the edges, the sheer mundane impossibility of it. I replayed the clip again and again, searching for trickery. Wires thinner than spider silk, reflections, magnetic fields. Nothing. Raw, inexplicable reality. Later that afternoon, the contents of my stomach violently rejected the day's coffee in the privacy of my waste bin. I sought out Ms. Albright, my supervisor. Years we'd worked together. She knew me as methodical, grounded. I presented the laptop, the footage. Her composure eroded frame by frame, her complexion turning to parchment. Has anyone else seen this, Elias? Her voice was hushed. I shook my head. Don't show them, she commanded, a strange urgency in her tone. Not a soul. Allow me to handle this. The following day brought visitors. 2 men, sculpted by anonymity, clad in identical grey suits. Their credentials identified them merely as corporate security. No names exchanged. They interrogated me with detached precision. The window's habits, the camera's placement, my own routines. Copies of my photos, my videos, vanished into their briefcases. One pressed a blank card into my hand, bearing only a string of digits. Any further anomalies, Mr. Thorne? His voice flat, devoid of inflection. Report immediately. Time is irrelevant. That evening, defiance warred with unease. I remained intending to witness the Foray Museum performance firsthand. Around 10, Miss Albright appeared, her face etched with a tension that belied her calm words. Elias, go home now, she urged, her voice low, almost pleading. Please, trust me in this. An unnamed fear, colder than the draft from the window, coiled in my stomach. I obeyed. I left. Night after night, the window performed its solitary act. Night after night, the camera documented it. The lock turning, the pane swinging open. 4 inches, always 4 inches, always silent. The men in suits became periodic specters, materializing to collect the digital evidence, offering no explanation, no comfort. Then, subtly, the haunting broadened its scope. A month into the ordeal, the disturbances migrated inward. My desk chair nudged millimeters from its accustomed spot. Documents subtly reshuffled overnight. My coffee mug migrating inexplicably to the opposite side of the blotter. A second camera was deployed, this one surveying the entire office space. The new footage confirmed my sanity, even as it frayed it further. Between 3 and 4 in the morning, objects stirred. A pen rolling uphill, files levitating briefly before settling. As if an unseen occupant paced my confines, idly rearranging the inanimate. My pleas for relocation, another floor, another building, anywhere, met curt refusal. A request to work remotely? Denied. Miss Albright now avoided my gaze entirely. The grey suits ceased their visitations. Silence, thick and heavy, descended. Then came last week. Exhaustion finally claimed me, slumped over spreadsheets near midnight. I surfaced from a shallow doze not to an alarm, but to a sound, the distinct metallic click of the window latch. Every instinct screamed stillness. Eyes clamped shut, breath held captive in my chest. The air grew frigid, a palpable drop. Then, footsteps, soft, impossibly light, scuffing the carpet just behind my chair. They paused. A pressure landed on my shoulder. Contact. Frigid, utterly devoid of warmth, like stone pulled from a winter river. Primal terror, obliterated reason. I bolted. Down the emergency stairs, through the echoing lobby, not stopping until the false security of my locked car enveloped me. I called in sick, then sick again. This morning the phone shattered the quiet. Ms. Albright. Her voice, strained but firm, delivered the ultimatum. Return tomorrow, or face termination. Everything is under control now, Elias, she insisted, offering no details, no solace. What control meant, she refused to elaborate. So here I sit, in the supposed sanctuary of my home study, frantically typing this testament. My personal phone rings intermittently. Blocked numbers, silent callers. And the window here, the one overlooking my own quiet street, it stands open. 4 inches. I sealed it myself not an hour ago. Tomorrow, I return. The job, the paycheck, the semblance of normalcy. They are necessities I cannot afford to lose. But this record remains. A message in a digital bottle cast into the void. Should it find a reader, heed this. If you toil in those glass towers, attend to your windows. Double-check their seals before darkness falls. And if, upon arrival one morning, you find one inexplicably breached, do not investigate. Do not install cameras. Do not linger after hours. Do not succumb to sleep at your desk. Flee. Demand a transfer while the option still exists, before the denials become absolute. I must cease writing. There's a sharp rapping at my front door. The cadence is familiar. The men in suits have found me. And across the room, my study window has just eased open another inch. The ancient oak portal yielded with a protesting groan as I nudged it inward, the sound splintering the profound silence, echoing down the cavernous central aisle. No breath stirred the air, no footfall disturbed the quietude. Midnight had long since bled away. A solitary lamp cast a weak halo upon the vacant circulation desk, an island of light in a sea of shadows. The night watchman, a silhouette glimpsed earlier, had granted passage until dawn, contingent on silence, a vow readily given. My quarry was singular. A manuscript, its arcane reference scribbled on a frayed slip of paper, tucked within my coat. Navigating the first corridor, I trod lightly. Yet the floorboards beneath cried out with each step, their complaints swallowed by the immense hush. An aroma, thick and layered, permeated the space, the scent of desiccated paper, brittle bindings and aged lacquer. Towering shelves, hewn from timber dark as night, loomed on either side. Above, Archaic fixtures drizzled a feeble, jaundiced illumination. Some bulbs pulsed erratically, threatening darkness. No mechanical hum broke the stillness, only the faint, insistent ticking of an unseen chronometer somewhere in the labyrinthine depths. My gaze scanned the labels, a cryptic cartography of knowledge, until the sought-after designation emerged. A finger, hesitant, brushed along the spines of venerable hardcovers, their dust jackets long surrendered to time. Leather frayed, cracked like old skin. Titles faded into illegibility. Then, there it was, swaddled in unassuming, dun-colored cloth, its texture dry and faintly abrasive beneath my fingertips. Lifting it from its resting place, I bore the volume to a nearby reading table shadowed by a diminutive lamp. The table listed, unbalanced. Setting the manuscript down sent a tremor through its surface. I eased out a chair, its considerable weight dragging a harsh scrape across the polished wood. Carefully, I parted the cover. The pages within were sallow, stiff with antiquity. I turned one, then another, eyes narrowing against the script, a peculiar flowing hand that defied immediate comprehension. As I coaxed another fragile leaf over, a sound pricked the silence. A stifled chuckle, brief and low. My head snapped up. Nothing but endless rows of books met my gaze, silent sentinels in the gloom. A pause, breath held, then a return to the text. Another page turned. Again, the soft, unnerving mirth, seemingly emanating not from the room, but from the very fibers of the manuscript itself. I inclined my head, listening intently. No respiration, no stealthy tread, only the clock's relentless beat and the low thrum of the inadequate lights. A disquiet prompted me to turn, to survey the aisles behind me. The rows of shelving stretched away, seemingly elongated, multiplied. Where I recalled 5, perhaps 6 aisles upon entering, now 8, 10, perhaps more, receded into the dimness. A step away from the table, my eyes traced the intricate grain of the floorboards. A wrongness settled in my gut. Glancing toward the remembered direction of the entrance, I saw only shelves barricading the space where passage should have been. I took tentative steps back the way I'd come, finding the corridor between the stacks subtly altered, canted. The direct path I remembered taking to this table now presented a slight curve, displacing my position relative to the unseen door. Fatigue, perhaps. I rubbed my eyes, hoping to clear the distortion. Returning to the manuscript, I drew the lamp nearer, its bulb humming a low, resonant note. I turned a page. A delicate ripple of laughter breathed from the parchment. Cold red prickled my arms. My throat constricted. With deliberate gentleness, I closed the volume, the cover falling with a soft thud. Standing, a sudden urge for open air, for release, propelled me. I scanned for the entrance, remembering it mere paces behind me. Only shelves greeted my eyes. Circling the table, stepping left, I peered down an aisle. It plunged into a darkness deeper, more absolute than seemed possible. Another aisle offered only more towering stacks. I pivoted slowly, a full rotation. No hint of the circulation desk, no glimmer of the exit. My pulse hammered against my ribs. A damp sheen slicked my forehead. Swallowing hard, I called out, "Greetings." My own voice returned, amplified, mocking. "Is anyone present?" Silence answered. Straining my ears, I caught a faint rasping, like something sharp dragged across wood. The instant my attention fixed upon it, the sound ceased. Cautiously, I moved toward its source. The overhead lights flickered, casting dancing shadows. The pungent scent of old varnish sharpened. No other illumination pierced the gloom. No windows, no emergency signs, just these weary lamps and the omnipresent, silent books. I tried to reconstruct my path. Straight from the entrance, locate the manuscript, sit at the table. Simple. Yet now, the familiar landmarks had vanished, swallowed by the library's shifting geometry. Down one aisle I ventured, the shelves soaring 8 feet or more, crammed with somber, unadorned volumes. Each section mirrored the last. Dark wood, muted spines. Reaching the aisle's end, I turned right into another corridor, hurrying now, seeking a boundary, a wall, a door. Instead, the route inexplicably looped me back, depositing me near the very table where the manuscript lay. A circle. I was trapped in a loop. Scooping up the cloth-bound volume, I clutched it close. Perhaps returning it would break the spell. I recalled the shelf, the label. I retraced my steps. But where the designated spot should have been, a different shelf stood, housing unfamiliar texts. I checked the next aisle and the next. The original location had dissolved. The manuscript rested heavy under my arm. Its earlier laughter silenced, yet its presence seemed to gain mass. A palpable weight. The lights stuttered again. A low vibration resonated through the floorboards, the groan of immense weight shifting. A glance over my shoulder confirmed the impossible. A bookshelf slid ponderously, its base scoring the floor. Calm, I told myself. Breathe. My respirations came quick and shallow, my mouth arid. Panic clawed, despite the sheer absurdity of witnessing sentient shelves rearranging the very architecture around me. I resolved to find a perimeter wall. Surely the library had limits. I walked, forcing myself forward, down a long corridor, resisting the urge to turn. Time stretched, measured only by footsteps on creaking wood. Still, only shelves flanked me. I stopped, resting a hand on a stack of books. Their covers felt unnaturally cold. Pressing onward, after minutes that felt like hours, I reached a corner. A door inset with a small pane of clouded glass. Relief surged. I seized the handle, locked solid. I pushed, pulled. Futile. My knock produced a dull, absorbed thud. Then, the scraping sound returned, closer now behind me. Pressing my ear to the door yielded only silence from the other side. Another frantic twist of the handle confirmed its immobility. Turning, I faced a long aisle, receding into shadow. The lights buzzed insistently. The cloying sweetness of wood polish hung in the air. My legs felt leaden as I moved slowly forward. A flicker of movement. My own reflection caught in the glass of a fire extinguisher cabinet. My face stared back, pallid, beaded with sweat. My hand instinctively touched my jacket pocket, the paper within, the now useless reference number. It remained there, irrelevant. The floor seemed to subtly tilt beneath my feet. Then a whisper, faint as dust motes dancing in a light beam, breathed my name. I froze. No one here knew my name. I hadn't offered it. No register had been signed. How? The voice, low and rough-edged, repeated my name, then fell silent. "Who's there?" I called, my voice thin. No reply. Toward the sound's apparent origin, I crept, reaching another table, identical in design to the first, yet displaced. The manuscript. It was gone from under my arm. My hands were empty. When had I set it down? Bewildered, I spun around. There on the table, lay the manuscript open. I knew I had been carrying it. Hesitantly, I approached, peering at the exposed page. The ink seemed faded, the script cramped, slanted, impenetrable. My finger traced the writing. The paper felt distinctly warm. Lifting my hand, I rubbed thumb and forefinger together. A fine, dark dust remained. And then, the laugh again. A muffled, secretive giggle cut short. I slammed the cover shut, shoving the book away with revulsion. The scraping intensified, loud now. Behind me, a massive shelf glided across the aisle, its wooden foot gouging deep marks into the floor, sealing the path. I lurched forward, only to see another shelf move to block my way ahead. Trapped. To my left, a narrow gap remained. I squeezed through just as another towering unit threatened to close the space. I found myself in a small reading alcove, a single armchair, a low table, a lamp perpetually lit, its switch immovable. My fingers brushed the bulb, searing hot. I snatched my hand back, rubbing it against my trousers. Slow breaths, a tempting calm. My name whispered again, this time from behind the shelves to my left. Rising, holding my breath, I moved toward the sound. Between the stacks, a silhouette took shape, tall, slender, indistinct in the weak light. It seemed to observe me. Before I could speak, it retreated into deeper shadow. I hurried to the spot, but found only solid shelves, no passage, no door. I only wished to leave. I pleaded aloud, my voice trembling. Forgive me if I've caused disturbance. I won't take the manuscript. Silence was my only answer. The sound of nails scratching wood returned, chillingly close. A tremor ran through me. Casting about for a weapon, any defense, my hand closed around a heavy, leather-bound tome. I gripped it tightly, my palms slick with sweat. Inch by inch, I advanced, staying low, peering around shelf corners. Every attempt to move toward where an exit logically should be was met by the groaning, scraping ballet of the shelves. They shifted, reformed, walls of silent books conspiring against me. Lights flickered like dying synapses. My internal compass spun uselessly. I focused on minutiae, a small brass plaque on one shelf end. I'd passed it before. I tried reversing direction. After several minutes of cautious navigation, I reached a corner that felt different. A glass door, bearing a sign obscured by grime or shadow. The handle felt loose. I pulled. It gave way, opening into a small, cramped office. Inside, blessed stillness. A simple wooden desk, a green-shaded banker's lamp, a filing cabinet. Desk drawers yielded only paper clips, a desiccated pen. I lifted the telephone receiver. Dead air. Behind the desk, a window, its frame painted firmly shut. Pressing my forehead to the cool glass, I peered out into absolute blackness. No moon, no stars, no city glow, only the vague, dark masses of possible trees. The frame was thick, unyielding. Exiting the office, I found myself deposited into yet another corridor, this one unfamiliar. The shelves arranged in stark, straight lines receding into the distance. An end was visible. Hope flickered anew. I walked toward it, my footfalls echoing unnaturally loud. The corridor opened into a space that resonated with faint familiarity. Far ahead, the soft glow of the circulation desk lamp. I quickened my pace, shoes squeaking on the polished floor. The desk loomed closer, the entrance doors visible just beyond it. I broke into a run, refusing to look back, straining against the silence, listening for scraping wood, for laughter, for that voice. Nothing. The great entrance doors were closed, but a thin sliver of light showed beneath them. My hand closed on the handle, turned. It didn't budge. Locked. I threw my shoulder against the heavy wood. The frame shuddered, but held fast. Stepping back, scanning the now silent vastness, the voice spoke again, directly behind me. I whirled around. A blurred form solidified momentarily between the shelves, perhaps 10 feet away. It tilted its head, an unnervingly inquisitive gesture. A step toward it, and it dissolved back into the shadows. "What is it you want?" I yelled, the sound swallowed by the stacks. No answer, no return. Rubbing my face, teeth gritted, I turned back to the door. Again, I wrestled with the handle, twisting, yanking, lifting. Nothing. Spying a hefty dictionary on a nearby shelf, I seized it, swinging it hard against the metal handle. A clang reverberated. The door seemed to shift fractionally. I tried the handle again. It gave slightly. Pulling with all my strength, it opened an inch, then two. Wedging my foot in the gap, I strained, levering it open just wide enough to slip through. One final desperate shove, and I was out. I stood in the main building hallway. Here, the lights burned steady and white. The floor was cool tile, not wood. The air smelled faintly of old disinfectant, blessedly mundane. Over my shoulder, the library door stood closed. I tried the handle from this side, locked tight. Through its small glass panel, the interior looked utterly normal. Shelves orderly, the desk empty, the reading area quiescent. No movement, stable lights, no laughter, no voice. Down the tiled hallway I walked, toward the building's main entrance. The large glass doors at the front swung open easily at my touch. Outside, the night air was cool, damp against my skin. A distant car hummed on a far-off street. I stood for a long moment, gulping air, my muscles aching, shirt clinging damply to my back. My name, whispered in that rough voice, echoed in my skull. What transpired within those walls defied reason, but reason felt distant, unimportant now. Taking hesitant steps away from the edifice, I looked back. The old library stood silent, its windows dark voids, the heavy oak door firmly shut. From this vantage, it projected only aged dignity, ordinary and still. Nothing stirred, no sound escaped. I turned away and walked, putting one foot mechanically before the other, until I passed through the main gate and onto the empty street, resolutely not looking back again. The instant the heavy oak door swung inward, admitting me to the Sterling residence, a prickle of wrongness traced its way up my spine. Yet, how could I have foreseen that this, a mere evening of minding a child, would unravel into a tapestry woven with sheer, heart-stopping dread? It promised simplicity itself. The Sterlings, pillars of our provincial town, moneyed, esteemed, perpetually seeking steadfast care for their 5-year-old son, Leo. When Mrs. Sterling's call came that afternoon, her voice tight with urgency, pleading for me to step in for the usual sitter felled by sudden illness, refusal felt impossible. The offer of twice my standard fee certainly didn't dissuade me. I arrived as dusk bled across the meticulously sculpted grounds, stretching shadows like grasping fingers. Mr. Sterling, immaculate in tuxedo attire destined for some glittering charity gala, greeted me at the threshold. Clara, Thank heavens you could make it, he murmured, drawing me into a foyer vast enough to swallow my small car, all polished marble and gleaming mahogany. My jeans and worn sweater felt utterly inadequate. From the curve of the grand staircase descended Mrs. Sterling, her stilettos clicking like impatient metronomes, shoes likely exceeding my vehicle's worth. Leo's already tucked in, she announced, adding a final precise slash of crimson lipstick. He rarely stirs, but his room's the second door on the left, should he need you. I offered a nod. Previous visits had familiarized me with the layout, yet an odd tremor in her voice gave me pause. Nerves. Difficult to gauge beneath the smooth, immobile landscape of her face. Just one item, Mr. Sterling interjected, guiding me towards a sleek, wall-mounted tablet, glowing softly in the living room. We've integrated a new security suite, full camera access from this panel. Surprise flickered through me. Cameras. That was new. Mrs. Sterling emitted a laugh, sharp and brittle as spun glass. Oh, one can't be too vigilant these days, can one? Do keep an eye on the feeds, Clara. It will set our minds at ease, knowing you're watching. Before further questions could form, they were gone, whisked away in a cloud of expensive fragrance and clipped farewells. Silence descended, thick and heavy, punctuated only by the almost imperceptible thrum of advanced technology. I drifted towards the kitchen, retrieving a cold drink from the cavernous refrigerator. The tablet beckoned, its screen a mosaic, displaying silent, watchful eyes throughout the house. Most views were inert, swallowed by shadow. The sprawling rear lawn, the empty driveway, the upper corridor. One square, however, held my attention. Leo's room. The small boy slumbered peacefully in a bed shaped like a racing car. An unexpected disquiet settled over me, watching him. It felt intrusive, a violation of some unspoken boundary. Just as I resolved to look away, a flicker of movement snagged the periphery of the feed. My pulse gave a startled leap. Leaning closer, I peered intently at the grainy night vision image. There, again, a smudge of darkness crawling along the floor's edge. Perhaps merely a play of light, an optical phantom. But as I watched, transfixed, the shadow seemed to coalesce, elongating, inching inexorably towards Leo's bed. I flew up the staircase, feet barely touching the plush runner, taking the steps in pairs. My palm, slick with sudden perspiration, closed around the cool brass of Leo's doorknob. I eased the door open, a whisper of sound in the profound quiet. The room swam in the gentle luminescence of a rocket ship nightlight. Leo was undisturbed, his small chest rising and falling rhythmically. My gaze swept the room, straining against the dimness. Nothing. No lurking shape or no sign of intrusion. Foolish, I chided myself, retreating downstairs. My imagination, surely stoked by the strangeness of monitoring surveillance feeds in this opulent, familiar yet unfamiliar house. Sinking into the embrace of a velvet sofa, I sought refuge in the mindless scroll of my phone. An hour drifted by, measured only by the grandfather clock's solemn chime. I checked on Leo again, physically this time, finding him still lost in untroubled sleep. Returning downstairs, however, A motion on an external camera feed arrested me. A silhouette slipped across the flagstone patio, hugging the deepest pools of darkness. My breath hitched. Could it be the Sterlings, returned unexpectedly early? No. The figure was clad entirely in black, their movements economical, furtive, imbued with unsettling purpose. My fingers scrambled for my phone, poised to dial for help, when the figure pivoted, staring directly into the camera lens. Ice water sluiced through my veins. They wore a mask, blank, white, utterly devoid of features, ripped from the fabric of a nightmare. The masked intruder lifted a gloved hand, index finger extended, pointing straight at me through the digital eye. Then, with agonizing slowness, the finger traced a sharp, cutting line across the throat. The screen dissolved into blackness. Panic detonated within my chest. I jabbed frantically at the unresponsive tablet, desperate to resurrect the camera feeds. Nothing. The entire system was inert. A floorboard groaned overhead. I froze, listening intently. Unmistakable footsteps, heavier than a child's, echoed from the upper floor. My thoughts scattered like startled birds. Get Leo. Get out. But the intruder? Were they already upstairs? Were there more than one? Heart hammering a frantic rhythm against my ribs, certain its thunderous beat would betray me, I crept towards the staircase. The house itself seemed to hold its breath, shadows deepening, every corner pregnant with unseen menace. Halfway up, a door creaked open. Leo's small, frightened voice drifted down the hallway. "Hello? Mommy?" "Leo!" Abandoning caution, I surged upwards, rounding the landing towards his room. Light spilled from the open doorway into the darkened corridor. Leo stood there, blinking sleepily in his spaceship pajamas. "Clara, I had a scary dream." Relief washed over me, potent and dizzying. I swept him into my arms, holding him tight. "It's okay, little guy. We need to go downstairs now." Very, very quietly. He burrowed against my shoulder, nodding, still caught in the undertow of sleep. I turned towards the stairs and my blood ran cold. Poised at the far end of the hallway, utterly still, stood the masked figure. Leo, sensing the sudden tension radiating from me, began to whimper. I clutched him tighter, mind racing. The stairs were blocked, the only other route. I spun and bolted for the master suite. I knew it possessed a balcony. If I could reach it, perhaps I could summon help, find an escape. Slamming the heavy door shut, I fumbled with the lock, knowing it offered only fleeting resistance. Setting Leo down momentarily, I rushed to the ornate French doors leading outside. Locked. "No, no, please," I whispered, rattling the handle futilely. Through the glass, the warm glow of neighboring houses mocked me. Islands of normalcy impossibly distant. A solid thud reverberated against the bedroom door, making me flinch. Leo's whimpers escalated into frightened sobs. Scooping him up again, my eyes darted wildly around the opulent room, searching for any potential weapon. The impacts intensified, the door shuddering violently in its frame. It wouldn't last. Backing towards the balcony doors, I shielded Leo with my body. My free hand closed around the cool, reassuring weight of a heavy crystal vase on an end table. Pathetic, perhaps, but all I had. With a sickening crack, the door splintered inwards, showering the carpet with fragments of wood. The masked figure filled the doorway, silhouetted against the hall light. A long, wickedly sharp knife gleamed in the hand. "Please," I begged, my voice fracturing. "Don't hurt him. Take anything you want. Just let us go." The figure tilted its head, a gesture unnervingly calm. Then, to my utter astonishment, they reached up, pulling the blank white mask away. It was Eleanor Sterling. Mrs. Sterling?" I stammered, reality tilting precariously. What is happening?" She smiled, but the familiar society veneer had cracked, revealing something predatory beneath. "Oh, Clara," she cooed, the sweetness laced with venom. "You performed admirably. Better than we dared hope, truly." "Mommy," Leo whimpered, hiding his face against my neck. "What are you talking about?" My mind struggled to bridge the chasm between the elegant hostess and the knife-wielding figure. "Why are you doing this?" Her laugh, that brittle, sharp sound again. "It's elementary, my dear. We needed to rigorously test our new security protocols. And what better crucible than a genuine home invasion scenario?" She gestured with the knife towards the ruined doorway. "Richard, darling, you can emerge now. Our little test subject has endured quite enough, I believe." Mr. Sterling materialized beside her, a hint of discomfiture warring with an unnerving air of command. "You must appreciate, Clara," he began, his tone infuriatingly measured, "that in our position, absolute certainty regarding our family's safety is paramount. We required empirical proof the system functions, that our sitter possesses the necessary instincts in a crisis." I gaped at them, stupefied. "You. This was a test. Do you have any concept of the terror you inflicted? How frightened Leo is." Mrs. Sterling waved a dismissive, jewel-laden hand. "Oh, he'll forget all about it. Children possess remarkable resilience. And you, my dear, passed with distinction. We shall, of course, be doubling your remuneration effective immediately. One simply cannot place a value on absolute peace of mind." My gaze dropped to Leo, still trembling against me, soft sniffles punctuating the tense silence. Then I looked back at his parents, standing amidst the wreckage they'd created, their callousness breathtaking. Something brittle within me fractured. "Keep your blood money," I spat, carefully setting Leo down. "I quit, and the instant I walk out of this house, I'm contacting the police and Child Protective Services. What you've done, it isn't merely wrong. It's monstrous." The self-satisfied expressions wavered. Mr. Sterling stepped forward, hands raised in a placating gesture. "Now, Clara, let's not act precipitously. I'm certain we can arrive at an understanding." Evading them, I scooped Leo back into my arms. "Stay away from us," I warned, astonished by the unexpected steel hardening my voice. "We are leaving. Right now." They offered no resistance as I descended the grand staircase and strode out into the cool night air. The moment my feet hit the gravel driveway, my trembling fingers retrieved my phone and dialed 911. Sitting on the curb, cradling a quietly weeping Leo, I watched the approaching emergency vehicles paint the Sterling's perfect facade in flashing strokes of red and blue. Giving my statement felt surreal, the events of the night replaying like a fever dream. As uniformed officers led Mr. and Mrs. Sterling away in handcuffs, Eleanor Sterling's eyes met mine. The mask of civility was firmly back in place, but now I saw the fissures beneath, the darkness coiling just under the polished surface. I hugged Leo closer, making a silent, fierce promise to shield him, to ensure his true safety. From this moment forward, the evening began as a commonplace task, babysitting. It ended as a brutal lesson. True monstrosity often resides not in shadows, but behind manicured lawns and designer labels. As the police cruisers disappeared down the drive, I knew life, for both Leo and myself, had irrevocably shifted. Yet, in surviving the calculated terror, we had unearthed a resilience neither of us knew we possessed. Whatever lay ahead, we would face it, bound by the night's ordeal. Together. No one petitions for uncanny sounds upon relocating. My sole desire was sanctuary, a quiet quarter defined by venerable architecture and neighbors of simple habit. Yet, barely a week settled, the low, lingering whistle found me near midnight. It emanated from the tight confines beside my window. I bolted from bed, peering into the alleyway's throat. Nothing stirred save the ancient stone sweating under a lone street lamp that pulsed against the damp air. A drunkard, perhaps, or some late-night wanderer. Plausible dismissals until the whistle returned the following night and the night after that. Never haphazard, always deliberate, a sound that coiled tight within my chest. At the office, between columns of figures, my thoughts strayed, pencil tapping rhythmically, wrestling with the creeping possibility that my own mind was betraying me. I am, by all accounts, unremarkable. Silas, tethered to ledgers in a small accounting firm nestled in this old city's heart. The work offers little spark, merely the means to sustain myself in a modest apartment tucked away on a serpentine street, largely forsaken after dusk. Here, the building faces loom so near, one might almost span the gap with outstretched arms. Even on mild evenings, the night air hangs thick and chill. My flat boasts a perpetually defunct heater. A collection of blankets on the sofa serves as my inadequate defense. A condition endured, not conquered. Each evening concludes with a homeward trek around 10 or 11. The journey is protracted, threading through numerous narrow passages, shortcuts slicing minutes off the route along main thoroughfares. Illumination is scarce, provided by archaic fixtures bolted to stone facades, half of them extinguished relics. My footfalls acquire an unnerving resonance, echoing in a way that strips away anonymity, leaving me feeling starkly exposed. Roughly 2 weeks after the whistle first intruded, a new sensation surfaced. The distinct feeling of being observed. Halfway down some constricted channel, a presence would materialize at my back, an insistent prickle on my neck, a sudden frantic thrumming beneath my ribs. I'd whirl, confronting only familiar emptiness, converging walls, perhaps a feline shadow slinking near refuse bins, or the fleeting scurry of a rat. Nothing human. Once I experimented with stealth, sliding my feet rather than stepping firmly, straining to catch another's movement. Futile. Only the distant rhythmic drip from a faulty downspout punctuated the quiet. That profound silence became its own kind of pressure, almost more unsettling than any distinct noise. I mentioned it to Marcus at work. He offered a shrug, a mumbled comment about the city's age, its abundance of peculiar corners, suggesting I was merely unnerving myself. The idea of fearing my own neighborhood chafed, so one night, I resolved to alter my path. I skirted the deepest shadows, clinging to a wider, albeit longer street, adding 15 minutes to my commute. That night, the sound pursued me nonetheless. Faint initially, it crept closer, seemingly borne on the breeze itself, raising the hairs on my neck. I halted, listening intently. The whistle persisted, weaving around me, ricocheting off unseen surfaces. It seemed to draw nearer when I remained still. The sheer wrongness of it, that singular low pitch tracing the same few mournful notes, defies easy explanation. A glance over my shoulder revealed nothing. I scanned the street corners for lurking shapes, for shadows detached from substance. Still nothing. With conscious effort, I propelled myself forward. Reaching my building, the key trembled in my grasp as I fumbled with the lock. Sleep offered no refuge. My mind raced, conjuring specters. An old man, draped in rags, leaning on a gnarled cane, whistling from just beyond sight. Then, a figure cloaked in darkness, stalking the labyrinthine streets with obscure intent. Such imaginings felt overwrought, theatrical, yet the whistle's reality was undeniable. My body registered its truth. That night, the bed felt glacial, my gaze repeatedly drawn to the window, anticipating a watcher below. Around 3 a.m, I thought I detected faint footsteps, but the boundary between waking and dreaming had blurred. Morning found me depleted. Shadows pooled beneath my eyes. Marcus inquired if late-night television binges were the cause. I offered no correction. A few days hence, resolve hardened within me. I would lie in wait, intercept the whistler. Leaving the office ahead of schedule, I showered quickly at home, shedding the day's grime, then clad myself in dark attire and slipped back outside. I positioned myself against the damp, cool stone near my building's entrance, waiting. The ground beneath my feet was uneven, the air thick with the miasma of mold and old refuse. An hour passed, my legs aching from stillness. Then it began. Deeper within the warren of alleys, the first long note unfurled. My stomach clenched. Sweat beaded on my forehead. Retreat beckoned, but I held my ground. A confrontation was necessary. This fear was unsustainable. The whistle continued, revealing its pattern. 4 or 5 notes, a breath of silence, then repetition. A melancholy tune, amplified by the close-set walls. I began to move towards the sound, my sneakers grating softly on the cobblestones. I focused on steadying my breath, though my heart hammered against my ribs as if seeking escape. Ahead, the passage remained empty. Passing beneath a sputtering street lamp, its light momentarily faltering. My own shadow stretched long and distorted beside me, an unsettling companion. Turning a corner, I abruptly saw it, a silhouette at the passage's end, indistinct, a mere dark form against the faint luminescence of a distant lamp. My feet rooted themselves to the spot. My jaw tightened. The whistle persisted, clearer now, undeniably originating from that figure. "Hey!" My voice, unnaturally loud, fractured the stillness, echoing back at me. The silhouette seemed to ripple, to shift. I advanced a few paces. The whistling ceased abruptly. A faint, shuffling sound followed, like a shoe dragging across stone. I broke into a run. By the time I reached the spot, it was deserted. Heart pounding, breath ragged, I scanned the vicinity. The alley diverged into two narrower paths, both swallowed by darkness. I listened for the whistle. Silence. A vagrant breeze nudged a scrap of paper along the stones. Mechanically, I stooped to retrieve it. An old, torn, faded flyer for some forgotten local festival. No answers here. I stood for a long moment, swallowing against the dryness in my throat, before turning back towards home, adrift in a deeper confusion than before. That night became a loop of replaying the encounter. The silhouette, glimpsed for only moments, roughly my height, easily masked by a dark coat. Yet, something in its posture. A stillness that felt like waiting, as if it had intended to be seen. I tossed in bed, sleep elusive. Eventually I rose, brewed instant coffee, its acrid steam rising in the cold air, and stared down into the alley. Empty, as always. I forced the window shut, seeking a barrier against the night, and willed my racing pulse to slow. The following day unfurled in a series of yawns. My supervisor reprimanded me for a clumsy error on a simple spreadsheet. Embarrassment prickled. My nerves felt frayed to the point of transparency. Concentration shattered by the phantom echo of that whistle. Thus, a week dissolved. Each night brought the whistle, sometimes distant, other times disturbingly close. Once, it seemed to rise from directly beneath my window. I rushed to look, heart hammering, only to find the pavement below utterly vacant. Frustration mounted, a bitter tide. Telling the landlord, calling the authorities, what credible complaint could I voice? A nocturnal whistler in the alleys? Dismissal felt certain. I attempted to capture the sound on my phone, but invariably, the moment I pressed record, the whistle would fade or cease entirely, leaving me with useless digital silence punctuated by ambient city hum. Finally, on a Friday evening, I opted for a more systematic approach. Home from work, I changed into sturdy shoes, armed myself with a flashlight, and plunged into the tangled network of streets behind my building. The night air bit cold. I jammed my free hand deep into a pocket. The flashlight's beam was a feeble weapon against the gloom, yet better than none. I navigated each passage methodically, stepping over puddles reflecting the meager light, skirting piles of refuse. Every few minutes, I paused, straining to catch the whistle's opening note. After perhaps half an hour, I heard it, seemingly originating from an alley adjacent to a derelict courtyard. I moved towards it, cautious, pulse hammering a frantic rhythm in my temples. I emerged into a small enclosed square, hemmed in by tall stone walls. A single lamp flickered erratically in one corner, casting a weak, unreliable glow upon a battered wooden bench. The whistle was stronger here. I tried to pinpoint its source, my steps crunching on loose gravel near the bench. Then soft footfalls sounded behind me. I spun around, flashlight beam stabbing the darkness. It grazed a figure's outline for a fraction of a second before they melted behind a low wall. I gave chase, lungs burning. Reaching the spot, I found only a shadowed corner. I swept the ground with the light, just gritty pavement and a scattering of dead leaves. No footprints. I stood there, heart galloping, listening. The whistle had evaporated once more. A profound chill traced its way down my spine. I switched off the flashlight, embracing the darkness, hoping my eyes might adjust, might detect some subtle movement. I waited, my own breathing unnervingly loud in the stillness. The scent of damp stone and ancient moss filled my nostrils. My fingers felt slick around the flashlight's handle. After a minute or perhaps longer of absolute silence, I flicked the light back on and slowly retraced my path. No sight, no sound pursued me. Back in my apartment, the clock nearing 2 in the morning, I collapsed onto the sofa, every muscle screaming with accumulated tension. I awoke the next morning to a painfully stiff neck. Brewing potent coffee, I sat at my small table, mentally replaying the night's fruitless chase. A weariness settled deep within me. This city, I mused, was built on secrets. Its old edifices riddled with hidden tunnels, sealed chambers, forgotten dwellings. Locals whispered tales of specters and buried fortunes. Such folklore had never held my interest. Now, I found myself entangled in a narrative I couldn't comprehend. The persistent whistle, the fleeting silhouette, the unnerving sense of being watched. It felt intensely personal. For the next few days, I attempted denial. Arriving home from work, music immediately filled the small apartment, a bulwark against the outside world. Occasionally, through the melodies, I thought I discerned faint whistling notes, but I fiercely told myself it was imagination, auditory residue. Stress manifested as a constant ache in my stomach. Marcus remarked on my pallor. I mumbled excuses about poor sleep. A weekend escape was suggested. I declined. Some stubborn part of me refused to flee, needed to understand. The feeling of powerlessness was intolerable. One evening, walking the final stretch of alley towards my door, the whistle sounded again. This time, however, it seemed softer, less insistent. My entire body went rigid. I turned the key, stepped inside, but paused, leaving the door slightly ajar, listening. A quiet scrape on the pavement outside, heart pounding violently. I stepped back out, scanning the narrow passage. The ancient street lamp buzzed overhead, a moth fluttering erratically in its glow. Then I saw it, a nebulous shape near a corner, perhaps 30 feet distant. I took a hesitant step forward. The shape shifted. It coalesced into the form of a person clad in dark clothing. The whistle began anew. My mouth went instantly dry. My hands trembled. Shout, run, confront, indecision paralyzed me. "Stop messing around." The words tore from my throat, cracking with strain. The figure moved, not away, but towards me. For one heart-stopping instant, I thought I glimpsed a face, but the light remained too unreliable, too dim. Definitely a man. He paused, seemed to regard me for a long moment, then turned deliberately away. He walked down the alley without a backward glance, the whistle trailing behind him, like a fading echo. I stood, frozen, stunned. Then instinct took over, propelling me forward in pursuit. My heart hammered against my ribs. I rounded a corner just in time to see him melt into another darkened passageway. I sprinted, legs unsteady. Reaching the entrance, I found only emptiness. No resonance of footsteps, no lingering whistle. The tension in my chest felt crushing. I realized I was gasping for breath. Dazed, I walked back to my apartment. Sleep was impossible that night. I sat by the window, an unwilling sentinel, attuned to the city's nocturnal murmurs. Sporadically, faint notes of the whistle drifted on the air, stark reminders of his continued presence. My thoughts didn't spiral into elaborate terrors, but focused on a few stark certainties. He is real. He is fast. He knows these tangled ways intimately. And he is not finished. Why me? Was I the sole focus or one of many? The questions remained unanswered, hanging heavy in the silent room. Morning arrived with a leaden weight in my head. My reflection showed bloodshot eyes stark against sunken cheeks. The realization struck with clarity. This existence was untenable. Yet, the thought of being scared away, driven from my home by an unseen tormentor, rankled. This city, ancient and confining though it might be, was mine now. No better prospects awaited. So, a decision formed, solidifying in my exhausted mind. I would continue the search. I would wait again in the shadowed alleys. I would keep listening for that haunting melody. I would face him, demand answers. The ending remained unknown, shrouded in the same obscurity as the Whistler himself, but hiding was no longer an option. I felt it deep within me. That whistle holds a story, intrinsically bound to these old stones, these winding paths. One day, I intend to uncover that secret. Until then, vigilance will be my companion, my feet steady, my nerves honed. Should he reveal himself again, I will not run. The time for running is over. And if he chooses to corner me, I will stand my ground. I am weary of living in the shadows of this place. I may be solitary against whatever lurks in these alleys, but I will not yield now. A single raindrop struck the canvas overhead, a percussive tap almost swallowed by the fire's dwindling crackle. My gaze found Ilara's across the embers. The unsteady light danced on her features, mirroring the disquiet churning within me. Throughout the evening, the woods had whispered unfamiliar sounds, dismissed initially as the forest's nocturnal chorus. But now, cloaked in true dark, with the rain commencing its somber rhythm, those same sounds acquired a distinctly menacing edge. We hadn't intended this deep immersion. Our planned destination, a well-trodden site by the lake, had pulsed with the boisterous energy of adolescence upon our arrival. Seeking tranquility, we pressed further, deeper into the tangled green, eventually claiming a secluded clearing that felt initially like sanctuary. A foolish impulse I recognized too late. Doesn't the narrative always punish the pair who wanders off? Yet, this wasn't celluloid fantasy. This was palpable reality. Zipping the tent flap against the quickening downpour, I marshaled reassurances. Seasoned campers, adequate provisions, a map, a hazy notion of the nearest ranger outpost. We were prepared. We were safe. The rain intensified, a relentless drumming against the taut fabric shelter. Ilara and I burrowed into our sleeping bags, our low murmurs mapping out the next day's intended trek. Gradually, though, words faltered, yielding to a heavy silence punctuated only by the ceaseless rain and the low, distant growl of thunder rolling through the hills. Midnight approached, perhaps past, when the first alien sound pierced the night. A voice muffled and low, emanating from the blackness just beyond our thin walls. "Did you hear?" Ilara whispered, her fingers tightening around my forearm like a vice. I strained, listening past the aquatic curtain. Silence for a beat. Then it returned. Another voice, a different timbre, answering something lost to the deluge. "Other campers, maybe?" I offered, the words thin, lacking conviction. Deep down, the lie felt hollow. We'd encountered no soul, no sign of passage all day. These weren't the casual tones of fellow travelers. Urgency vibrated beneath the surface, a tension that frayed my already taut nerves. Elara shifted, pressing her ear flush against the nylon. Closer, she breathed, the word barely audible. She wasn't wrong. The voices gained clarity, though the specific words remained obscured by the downpour. More than voices now. Footsteps crunched through sodden leaves and undergrowth, deliberate, purposeful. Should see who it is, I murmured, my hand moving towards the zipper. Could be someone lost, needing help. Elara's hand shot out, arresting mine. Are you mad? We have no idea who's out there. Before a retort could form, a stark beam of light sliced across our tent, throwing our huddled silhouettes into sharp relief against the fabric. Elara choked back a gasp. We froze, breaths held captive in our chests. The footsteps began a slow, measured circuit of our small haven. Shadows writhed on the walls. Low murmurs drifted, tantalizingly close, just beyond the membrane separating us from the unknown. My heart hammered against my ribs, a frantic drumbeat I felt certain they must perceive. Know you're in there, a rough voice rasped, sudden and unnervingly near. Come out, just want to talk. Our eyes met, wide with shared terror. The voice's inflection stripped the words of any benign intent. Conversation was clearly a euphemism. What do we do? Elara mouthed, panic stark in her gaze. I shook my head, adrift, bereft of options. Trapped. Remain. And they could simply tear their way in. Flee. And we'd be exposed. Disadvantaged in the rain-lashed, unfamiliar dark. A second voice, smoother, joined the first. Don't make this difficult. Out now. Nobody needs to get hurt. The falsehood was so bald it bordered on the absurd. Leaning close, I whispered into Elara's ear. When I shout, run. Trees, don't look back. Just run. Her nod was tight, her face pale but resolute. Drawing a deep, steadying breath, I braced myself. Then, in one explosive movement, I ripped the zipper down and yelled, "Go!" We erupted from the tent like flushed quail, a fleeting impression of startled faces, flashlight beams jerking erratically. Then the consuming blackness of the forest swallowed me whole. I heard Elara scrambling through the brush nearby, felt the rain stinging my skin. Behind us, angry shouts and the heavy thud of pursuing feet. Rain blinded me as I ran, branches clawing, unseen roots grasping like skeletal hands. Direction dissolved. Instinct screamed only away. Away from the campsite, away from the voices, lose them in the forest's labyrinthine embrace. A gunshot shattered the night air, shockingly loud. Elara cried out. I reached blindly, found her hand, pulled her onward. Keep moving, I choked out. We ran until our lungs burned, until each inhalation felt like swallowing fire. The sounds of pursuit dwindled, receded, yet fear forbade stopping. Not yet. Finally, poised on the edge of collapse, I saw it, a massive fallen sentinel, its uprooted base forming a dark, recessed hollow. I steered Elara towards it. We scrambled into the muddy embrace, collapsing against the damp earth, struggling to muffle our ragged gasps. For what felt like an eternity, we remained there, huddled small, straining against the steady percussion of the rain. The forest seemed to hold its breath around us. No voices, no footsteps, only the ceaseless drip of water from saturated leaves and the occasional far-off grumble of thunder. "Think we lost them?" Elara whispered at last, her voice trembling. "Maybe," I conceded, the word tasting like ash. "But we can't stay. We need help." As the adrenaline subsided, the stark reality of our predicament crashed down. Adrift in a nocturnal wilderness, drenched by a storm, stripped of supplies, communication, even footwear. We'd fled in socks, now sodden rags caked with mud. And somewhere in the encompassing darkness, armed men hunted us. "We have to move," I urged, peering cautiously from our refuge. "Can you walk?" Elara nodded, shivering violently despite the affirmation. I felt the same bone-deep chill. Soaked, terrified, utterly vulnerable. But stillness was not an option. We crawled from beneath the log, rising unsteadily, attempting to orient ourselves in the gloom. The rain had eased slightly, but impenetrable clouds veiled any guiding stars. I dredged my memory for the direction of our panicked flight, reasoning we should head the opposite way. "This way," I decided, pointing into the dripping obscurity. "Think there's a road few miles that way. If we reach it..." We moved off, attempting stealth through the saturated undergrowth. Every snapped twig sent jolts of panic through us. Every elongated shadow seemed poised to strike. More than once we froze, hearts pounding at some nearby rustle, only to identify the source as wind or unseen woodland creature. My mind raced, grappling with the incomprehensible. Who were they? What motive drove them? The campsite, a lure? For us specifically, or any unfortunate souls who stumbled into their domain? Questions swirled, unanswerable, each one amplifying the terror. All that mattered was forward motion, finding sanctuary before they found us again. The first faint hint of dawn bled into the eastern sky when the distant drone of traffic reached our ears. It was a lifeline. Renewed vigor surged through exhausted limbs. Ignoring aching feet and protesting muscles, we pushed onward, bursting through the tree line onto the damp shoulder of a highway, just as the sun crested the horizon. The sight of a passing car, mundane, miraculous, the first emblem of civilization in an age, brought tears stinging to my eyes. We flagged down the first approaching vehicle, an RV driven by a middle-aged couple whose initial alarm at our disheveled state quickly turned to concern. They summoned the authorities, wrapped us in blankets, offered steaming coffee while we waited, shivering uncontrollably. When the state troopers arrived, we recounted the night's events, the narrative tumbling out in fragmented bursts. Skepticism flickered in their eyes initially, but a subsequent search of our violated campsite yielded corroboration. Discarded beer cans, cigarette butts, and, chillingly, spent shell casings. We were lucky, they told us gravely. Reports had surfaced of a group preying on isolated campers, robberies escalating to worse. Our flight, it seemed, had been our salvation. In the ensuing days, adrift in statements and the fractured attempt to reclaim normalcy, I couldn't dislodge the chilling proximity of our fate. How easily we might have become another statistic, swallowed by the vast, indifferent wilderness. Camping ceased to be an option. The forest, once a haven of solace and discovery, now existed only as a repository of fear, a landscape etched with trauma. Yet sometimes, when the night brings rain and the wind sighs around the house corners, I find myself listening intently. And in the pregnant pauses between the falling drops, I almost hear them. Footsteps circling, ever circling, just beyond the fragile boundary of the light. How long this spectral embrace has held me, I cannot reckon. Time itself seems to dissolve within this damnable vapor. Longer, certainly, than any rational excursion should permit. Cold, cloying air rasps my throat raw, and beneath my jacket, my skin prickles with a persistent, unhealthy dampness. When I first deviated from the beaten path, mere hours ago, perhaps, though certainty feels like a forgotten luxury, the forest breathed a profound quietude. A weekend pilgrimage, conceived to scour the city's grime from my mind after months immured in my apartment. The itinerary was blessedly simple. Attain the peak, absorb the panorama, descend before twilight claim the woods. Now, the landscape is an alien canvas. Every familiar contour warped, every tree a grotesque silhouette blurred by the opaline miasma. This whiteness, it clots the air, denser than any fog of memory or experience. It coils and eddies with no discernible current, a silent, sightless ocean. And the smell, subtle, insidious, like the breath of a long-sealed sepulchre. It prickles the nostrils, tightens the gut. My eyes sting. Stillness invites a vertiginous lurch, the very ground seeming to tilt beneath my boots as if I tread upon some vast, unstable disk. I fix my gaze on a nearby tree trunk, a dark anchor in the swirling white. Each step towards it is a negotiation with sodden leaves and yielding earth. A frantic drumbeat echoes in my chest, accompanied by an unshakable pressure, a conviction that the world has slipped its moorings. Something is deeply, fundamentally awry. Again, the compass comes out. Again, its needle performs a frantic ballet, a dervish refusing allegiance to any pole. My GPS, brimming with charge when I departed my rented foothills cabin, remains stubbornly inert, a dark, unresponsive slab. Technology, it seems, is as lost as I am, silenced or maddened by this place. A curse escapes me, a rough sound swallowed by the fog as I shake the useless device. Pointless. Reaching the tree, I slump against its damp bark, gasping, striving for equilibrium. Through the shifting curtains of white, another form flickers into view, a faint outline, perhaps a dozen paces distant. I freeze, pulse hammering against my ribs. No sound escapes my lips. I merely watch, a statue of apprehension. The shape, tall, gaunt, hunched as if burdened. Its edges ripple, fragmenting like smoke before the mist consumes it utterly. Gone. I blink, hard, questioning my own senses. Not a first time. These fleeting apparitions, humanoid contours sketched and erased by the fog's whim. Never solid enough, never present long enough for confirmation, before dissolving back into the void. My legs betray me with a tremor. I compel them forward, clinging to the hope of thinner air ahead. Instead, after wrestling through a snarl of rasping undergrowth, I blunder upon it. A small cabin. It stands derelict, a skeletal structure of grayed planks beneath a roof that sags like weary shoulders. No map I consulted bore mention of such a place, yet now it represents the only sanctuary in this bewildering emptiness. The door groans open at my touch. Inside, gloom reigns, light filtering weakly through panes opaque with grime. Silence presses in, thick and heavy. My boots scuff across wooden floorboards, stirring an aroma of mildew and decaying textiles. An overturned chair sprawls near a table shoved haphazardly into a corner. I lean against the wall, breath tearing at my lungs, struggling to quell the rising tide of panic. My fingertips are numb. The cabin offers a paradoxical solace. Shelter, yet profoundly unsettling. It doesn't belong here. Shucking my back, I assess my water. Enough perhaps for a night, if rationed with care. I wipe sweat from my brow, the chill of it surprising, and try to marshal my thoughts. Dawn, leaving the rental. The crisp anticipation of the trail. Sick of the city's ceaseless clamor, I'd sought solace in the mountain's embrace. Regret now tastes bitter on my tongue. My gaze falls upon a mirror nailed to the far wall, its frame chipped, its surface clouded with dust and age. Approaching, I see only my own silhouette against the murky glass. A trembling hand lifts. My sleeve wipes a swath across the surface. The reflection gains a fraction more clarity, and in that instant, a flicker, a pale shape drifting past the window behind me. I spin around, heart leaping. Nothing, only the grimy window, the oppressive stillness. Turning back to the mirror, there is only my own face, wide-eyed with fear, staring back from the dim interior. On a cramped shelf nearby lie several sheets of paper, brittle with age, their edges curled. Journal entries perhaps or field notes. Scattered words leap out, fog. Impossible readings, compass spinning. Voices at night. A cold fist clenches around my heart. Another soul ensnared. I riffle through them, the script evolving from measured observation into jagged desperation, ink smudged as if by frantic hands. No dates, no names, just disjointed fragments of terror and confusion. No clues to an escape, if escape was ever achieved. Then, a sound from outside. A low, resonant hum, soft yet pervasive. Not the wind, no leaves rustle, no branches sway. It's more akin to distant chanting, a monotonous, hypnotic drone. Pressing my ear to the rough wood of the door, I listen. The sound waxes and wanes, a siren call from the depths of the white abyss. My skin crawls. They want me back out there. I swallow, the memory of those fleeting shapes vivid and terrifying. They hadn't attacked, hadn't pursued. They merely lingered, elusive, ever shifting, as if content to let the fog and the fear do their work, letting me wander until sanity frayed completely. I slide down the wall, drawing my knees to my chest, forcing measured breaths. A plan. I need a plan. Without compass or GPS, perhaps gravity is my guide. Downhill. Follow the slope relentlessly. It must, eventually, lead back towards the foothills, towards the cabin, the car, the world I left behind. I still possess energy bars, a flashlight, a whistle. The flashlight blessedly flares to life at my touch. I sweep its beam around the cabin's confines. It lands on the mirror again, and I swear, a fleeting instant of impossible motion within the glass, the reflection of someone passing just behind my shoulder. I scramble upright, swinging the light wildly. Empty space, just decaying wood and broken furniture mocking my terror. Staying is impossible. The cabin walls feel suffocatingly close, the air thick with unseen things. My breath hitches. Grabbing my pack, my meager supplies, I push back through the groaning door, stepping once more into the mist's clammy embrace. The humming voices recede slightly, becoming distant whispers, yet no less insistent. I choose a direction, aiming down the perceived slope, and move with deliberate care. With every stride, the undergrowth seems to conspire against me, clutching at my ankles. Wet leaves betray my footing. I steady myself on a low branch. The thudding in my ears drowns out the forest's silence. To my right, a shape coalesces, tall, featureless, unnervingly still. My flashlight beam strikes it. It dissolves like mist upon mist. I stagger back, nearly fumbling the light. The chanting swells, louder now, sourceless everywhere and nowhere at once. Onward. Minutes stretch into elastic eternities. The white vapor clings, condensing on my eyelashes, blurring the world further. Nausea churns. Dizziness spins my senses. Sweat breaks, followed by chills. Then sweat again. My ears pop. I shake my head, trying to clear the pressure. Still, I press forward, one agonizing step after another. Tripping over a fallen log, I collapse beside it, conceding a moment's rest. Blind progress feels futile. Muscles scream in protest. Tilting my head back reveals no sky, only the infinite, suffocating ceiling of white. Have I circled back? Lost the downward path? The chanting fades, leaving a vacuum of silence that feels even more profound, more menacing. I feel myself sinking into it, into a vast, indifferent emptiness. I bite my lip, the sharp tang of blood, a welcome anchor to reality. Fumbling in my pack, I retrieve the whistle. Two sharp, piercing blasts lance into the fog. The sound returns muffled, diminished. A pathetic echo. No response. Closing my eyes, I try to reconstruct the map in my mind. The rental cabin? 2 hours from the road. The trail clearly marked southeast. Southeast should lead towards the river. But where is southeast in this swirling vortex? The compass remains useless, its needle tracing frantic circles. The GPS, still dead. Phone signal, non-existent, trapped. A bubble of pure, unadulterated confusion. Suddenly, footsteps crunch behind me. Not mine. I leap up, heart seizing, flashlight beams slicing through empty, swirling vapor. Nothing visible. Yet the feeling persists. A presence, ancient and vast, brushing past. The hairs on my nape prickle. The journal pages, voices, impossible readings. Could this fog be unnatural? Something sentient perhaps, ancient as the mountains themselves, patiently luring travelers from the path, ensnaring them in a labyrinth of perpetual panic. It doesn't kill, no. It merely keeps you wandering forever. No, I refuse. Gritting my teeth, I lurch forward again, finding the downward slope once more. Keep moving, Elias, I whisper, my voice a ragged croak. Keep moving. Each footfall becomes a mantra. Peripherally, they flicker. Those ephemeral silhouettes appearing and dissolving at the edges of sight. I fight the urge to look directly, knowing they feed on attention, on fear. They want me to break, to run blindly. My flashlight beam weakens, dims. A knot tightens in my throat. I quicken my pace, desperation lending strength. The mist thickens, pressing against my eyes like damp thumbs. The memory of the mirror resurfaces, that fleeting reflection behind me. Was it inside the cabin too? Is it inside me? No. A sharp pain lances through my chest. I gasp, stumbling onward. The chanting returns, louder than before. a great resonant choir seeming to call my name, Elias, beckoning me to listen, to turn, to surrender and follow them back into the fog's heart. My teeth chatter uncontrollably. Leave me alone. The shout is feeble, absorbed instantly by the sound-dulling white. The chanting persists, fracturing now into sibilant whispers that seem to emanate from within my own skull. I swat blindly at the air, nearly losing my pack, forcing my legs into a stumbling run. My palms are slick. The certainty grows, cold and heavy, that I am walking in circles, that the cabin might be just behind me, or ahead, or perhaps it never existed outside my fractured perception. Time bleeds into an amorphous continuum of fear. Then hope flickers, a subtle thinning ahead, a promise faint but undeniable of a break in the oppressive shroud. I surge toward it, tearing through grasping branches that score my coat. Breath comes in ragged bursts. Step by painful step, the air clarifies, grows breathable. I stumble onto a slope, recognizing the jagged outcrop of rock. Yes, I passed this earlier, near the start. Hope, fierce and desperate, floods through me. Uncertainty remains, a cold counterpoint, but I cling to the landmark. The compass needle still quivers erratically, but its dance seems less frantic. My phone emits a weak beep, no signal, but alive. A shuddering exhale escapes me as I fight to still the trembling in my limbs. Behind me, the chanting fades, but doesn't vanish. It lingers, waiting. A palpable presence at my back. They haven't released me. They're merely granting a reprieve. 10 more minutes of determined walking, and I see it. A fallen pine, distinctively scarred, that I noted this morning. Relief crashes over me, potent as a drug. Almost out. My head still throbs, but the dizzying disorientation recedes. I push onward towards the remembered direction of the trail. Faintly behind me, I think I hear the echo of my own whistle, as if blown by other lips. I refuse to look back. Finally, I burst free from the clinging tendrils of the densest fog, collapsing near a moss-covered boulder. Color floods back into the world, the vibrant green of the moss, the rich brown of the earth, beneath my trembling hands. The oppressive whiteness has retreated, though spectral fingers still curl at the edges of my vision. Laughter and tears fight for release. My body is a symphony of aches. I am drenched in cold sweat. I glance at my phone again. A battery icon flickers weakly. The compass on my watch face wobbles, then tentatively points. Not safe, not yet, but closer. I push myself upright, take a few shaky steps, and instinctively check the small reflective face of my watch. Inside that tiny circle, my own face stares back, pale, haunted. And behind it, hovering just at the periphery, something shifts, a faint white outline drifting amongst the distant trees. My heart stutters, halts. I snatch my arm away, breath catching in my throat. The shape in the reflection is gone, but the knowledge remains, cold and absolute. It is still with me. Even here, beyond the fog's suffocating heart, its presence clings, a parasite latched onto my perception, lurking now in mirrors, in reflections. I cannot be certain it isn't following me down this slope, back to the rented cabin, back into the fabric of my life. As I limp downhill, each glance over my shoulder is an act of frightened vigilance, ears straining for the returning whispers. I have escaped the labyrinth for now, but its touch remains, an indelible stain on my soul. trust in maps, in instruments, in the solidity of the world, shattered. Henceforth, every reflection will be suspect, scanned for that flicker of white at the edge. The mist doesn't need to kill. It only needs me to remember. And I do. I always will. The memory clings, visceral, of that morning's air, a brittle stillness blanketing the land. No cloud marred the vast cerulean canvas. No breeze stirred the dust. Only Elara and the serpentine trail existed. Ahead, the path, a ribbon of ochre earth, snaked between unruly borders of weed and scrub. Her running shoes were cinched tight, a diminutive water flask nested in her right palm, her phone a silent sentinel strapped to her bicep. A swift circuit, perhaps 2 miles, was the intention. Escape the burgeoning heat, return to the sanctuary of home. Solitude reigned, no glint of parked metal near the trailhead, no fellow travelers encountered on the initial ascent. This emptiness felt right. The trail guarded its seclusion jealously. She began with measured strides, a deliberate cadence coaxing warmth into reluctant muscles. Breath became the metronome, the soft percussion of gravel beneath worn soles the only accompaniment. Her gaze fixed forward, resisting the peripheral pull. Flanking the path, tall grasses stood sentinel, blades stiff and unyielding in the windless hush. Occasionally, a phantom zephyr might set them whispering, but today, absolute stillness held sway. Minuscule flies orbited in frantic silent dances. Distant avian calls punctuated the quietude. Faint chirps from an unseen world. Little else stirred. 10 minutes dissolved. A loosening tension flowed through her calves, an invitation to quicken the tempo. The thin rubber of her aged shoes transmitted every nuance of the terrain, each stone a distinct pressure point. A subtle tightness lingered below her knees. Perspiration beaded on her skin. A brief sip of water, lukewarm against her tongue. She consciously softened her shoulders, seeking equilibrium in breath and movement. Then, dissonance. A sound alien to the trail's muted symphony, faint as moth wings against glass, brushed her awareness from the left. A whisper, low, indistinct. Her pace faltered. She scanned the periphery. Nothing. The grass, chest high in places, could easily conceal fauna, yet a human form would need to surrender to the earth, become one with the stalks. No anomaly presented itself. She halted, listening intently. Only the heave of her own lungs and the insistent thrum of insects answered the silence. A mental shrug, a dismissal, and she resumed her run. A minute, maybe 2, elapsed before it returned. That same susurrus, still unintelligible, yet undeniably present. A glance back over her shoulder revealed only the empty trail receding behind her. Ignore it. Forward momentum, steady rhythm. Then her name. Elara. A distinct articulation breathed directly beside her ear, yet the space remained vacant. A man's voice, she surmised, though its softness blurred certainty. It seemed to emanate from the dense verge, perhaps mere inches from the path's edge. She stopped dead, retraced a few steps, peered into the vegetation's depths. The grass stood thick, a wall of green and sere-brown shafts. Her hand parted the screen. Bare earth, scattered pebbles met her gaze. No sign of intrusion. She strained her ears. The trail held its breath. A single drop of sweat traced a path down her temple. She blinked, swiped her forearm across her damp brow. She forced sound from her throat. Hello? The word emerged stark, overloud in the profound quiet. Silence answered. She stood rigid, grappling with the possibility of auditory illusion. Turning, she contemplated retreat. The anomaly felt wrong, a violation of the trail's established peace. Yet, rationalization offered alternatives, a trick of acoustics, a distant echo warped into familiarity. Forward, she needed to complete the run, reclaim the lost time. Her pace increased, focus narrowed once more to the mechanics of motion. Inhale, exhale, steady footfalls, eyes locked ahead. The reprieve was brief. Minutes later, the whisper resurfaced, fractionally louder, clearer now. Elara. A pause. Elara. Again, from the left, nestled within the grass. She risked a sideways glance while maintaining her jog, but caught no flicker of movement, no shape, no hint of presence. Her run decelerated to a trot, then a walk, culminating in another standstill. Her heart hammered, a frantic rhythm born of more than exertion. She stood rooted, striving for composure, listening. The whisper recommenced, quiet but tenacious. Elara. Elara. Elara, spoken slowly, deliberately. A surge of anger, the urge to shout, to demand revelation died in her parched throat. She swallowed, fought for calm. Who's there? Only silence. Then the whisper again, her name entwined with the soft sibilance of exhaled breath near her ear. Impulsively, she stepped towards the grass verge, reached in, pushed aside the stalks once more. Her fingers brushed the dry, papery blades. Dirt, clumps of lesser weeds, stones. She kicked tentatively at the base, hoping to startle something into motion. Nothing. Retreating, she scanned the trail's surface. Only her own footprints marred the dust. The air remained utterly inert. No engine sounds, no human voices, nothing but the insistent whisper, anchored to the grass. Slowly, cautiously, she began to walk forward, her gaze riveted to the grassy edge. The whisper shadowed her movement, a constant, unwavering presence. It neither ceased nor faded. Elara. Elara. She tried engaging it. What do you want? The void offered no reply save the echo of her name. A prickling sensation traveled her arms. The hairs rose, her neck muscles tightened into knots. A cold fist clenched in her stomach. Vulnerability washed over her. The sharp tang of her own sweat filled her nostrils. Her breathing grew shallow, ragged. Her grip tightened on the water bottle until the plastic groaned. Ignore it. Run. Distance might sever the connection. She pushed herself into a steady run, harder this time, her feet churning small puffs of dust. The whisper kept perfect pace. An invisible runner locked to her flank, always unseen. Glancing left yielded nothing but the dense, impassive wall of grass. How could anything exist there, uttering her name, yet leave no trace, no rustle, no footfall, no displaced stem? Perhaps half a mile further, she surrendered again. Running felt futile against this persistent haunting. Turning to face the grass, she projected her voice, taut with strain. I don't know who you are. Show yourself. She waited, breath held captive in her chest. Elara. The name returned, unhurried. Her pulse raced, a frantic drum against her ribs. Her legs felt leaden, her chest constricted. Her hand sought her phone, the impulse to call for aid raising, then faltering. Who? The authorities? What report could she possibly make? A disembodied voice in the grass whispered my name. Lunacy. Besides, the screen displayed no service. Reception here was notoriously absent. She drew closer to the verge, knelt, parting the grass meticulously this time, searching for any subtle sign. Only earth, teeming with minuscule insect life, met her eyes. The loamy scent of dry soil filled the air. Tiny, intricate leaves of ground-hugging plants. No hidden form. The whisper seemed diffuse, lacking a precise point of origin, yet undeniably tethered to the trail's left flank. Rising, she backed away, a profound unease settling deep within her. Her face felt flushed. Her mouth remained stubbornly dry. Another sip of water, her hand trembling slightly, threatening to spill the precious liquid. She resumed walking, slowly, eyes fixed on the grass line. The whisper mirrored her pace. When she stopped, it persisted, maintaining its soft volume, the endless repetition of her name. An experiment. She crossed to the far right side of the trail, maximizing the distance. The whisper diminished, grew fainter, but did not cease entirely. Stepping back toward the center, its volume increased slightly. Closest to the left edge, it was loudest, yet never transgressing the boundary of a whisper, never offering another syllable. Ilara. The voice remained low, steady, devoid of urgency or malice. Calm. That placid quality amplified the wrongness, the violation. Shouting, screaming, those would carry the logic of threat. This serene, relentless murmur felt utterly alien. Escape routes warred in her mind. Ahead, the trail described a gentle curve, plunging deeper into the scrubland. The grass showed no sign of receding. Continuing meant perhaps another mile or two beside this unseen companion, before reaching a turnoff towards the main road. Retreat meant retracing her steps, the unnerving possibility that the whisper might follow, clinging to her back the entire way. Forward. She chose forward. Picking up her pace, she narrowed her focus to the vanishing point of the trail, the shifting mosaic of pebbles and dirt beneath her feet. Sweat slicked her back. The whisper droned on. Steady. Calm. Ilara. Her muscles screamed with tension. She tried to erect mental barriers, but the sound permeated everything. Too intimate. Too inexplicable. Approaching the bend, she noticed a subtle thinning of the vegetation. Patches of shorter grass appeared. Hope flickered. Perhaps where concealment was less absolute, the voice would falter. She ran. Breath tearing at her lungs, heart slamming against her ribs. The whisper endured. It did not fade. It simply continued. Reaching the area of sparser grass, she slowed, scanning the edges again. Still there, the height of the grass seemed irrelevant. Desperately, her eyes swept the landscape. Empty fields, scattered skeletal shrubs, parched earth, distant skeletal trees. Nothing offered explanation. Her jaw clenched against the tremor in her hands. She remembered the small folding knife nestled in her shorts pocket, a cheap talisman, rarely carried. She retrieved it, the click of the blade locking open a small, sharp sound in the stillness. It offered scant reassurance against an intangible foe, but she held it low by her side, a useless weapon against the unseen. Staring into the grass, she commanded, "Stop. Just stop." The whisper offered only her name again, slower this time, drawing out the syllables. Ilara. A bead of sweat detached from her chin fell to the dust. She had to leave, get out, reach the road, Safety lay where engines roared and normalcy might resume. She broke into a jog again, forcing speed into protesting legs. Ignore the rasp in her throat. Ignore the rigid set of her shoulders, the ache in her neck. The whisper matched her velocity effortlessly. For 10 agonizing minutes, it remained her shadow. Each furtive glance confirmed the grass's inanimate state. Nothing moved. Nothing revealed itself. The voice never varied. No anger, no increase in volume beyond that persistent whisper. Only her name, over and over. It refused release. She ran, lungs burning, feet protesting, one foot in front of the other, a desperate mantra. The whisper followed. It never lagged. She threw words at it. Leave me alone. I don't know what you want. Just go away. Futile gestures against the relentless echo of her name. Finally, salvation appeared. The trail junction ahead, marked by a weathered wooden post, pointed towards the main road. Relief surged through her, potent and overwhelming. She veered onto the side path. Here, the grass was shorter, the ground rockier, harder underfoot. The whisper persisted initially, then perceptibly began to recede. After a minute, she realized it was quieter. Glancing back towards the main trail, the tall grass still loomed, radiating unease. She paused, listening. With each step away, the sound attenuated further. 30 paces more, and it was barely audible. Another 30, and it vanished completely. She stopped, dragging deep, shuddering breaths into her starved lungs. Listening intently. Silence, save for her own ragged respiration and the distant, ambient hum of insects. No voice. No celebration followed, only a residual tremor coursing through her limbs as she fought to regain equilibrium. She looked down at herself. Legs coated in dust and clinging bits of dried vegetation, shoes filthy, the armband soaked through with sweat. A dull ache began to throb behind her eyes. Folding the knife, she returned it to her pocket, drained the last drops of water, and began walking towards the main road, eyes fixed firmly on the path ahead. Looking back was unthinkable. Understanding eluded her. Contemplation felt dangerous. 15 minutes later, the blessed sight of asphalt, the rumble of a passing car. A sigh escaped her, heavy with release. A modicum of safety returned. Her phone flickered, displaying a weak signal bar. The time showed barely 40 minutes had passed since she began. It felt like an eternity. She walked the roadside verge back to the small, empty parking area. Her car sat waiting. Inside, doors locked, engine humming. She drove away, refusing even a glance towards the trail entrance in her rearview mirror. The remainder of the day was spent actively suppressing the memory, the sheer strangeness defying logic or explanation. She told no one. The words felt inadequate, insane. That trail remained forbidden territory. Her next run followed a different, tamer route. Yet the unease lingers. Sometimes in quiet moments, she hears it still. That low, steady whisper of her name emerging from the grass, following, never revealing, never changing. The feel of the brittle air returns, the profound silence surrounding the voice, the slick sweat on her back, the knot of fear tightening in her gut. No answers ever came. She is merely grateful for the escape, harboring no desire to return and discover what truly waited within that whispering grass. The cadence of my breath, the metronome of my sneakers on asphalt, a familiar liturgy. Then dissonance, the brittle snap of dead wood underfoot somewhere behind. Not my footfall. My own stride hitched, a stutter in the rhythm, my pulse instantly a frantic bird against my ribs. The park mere moments ago, a verdant lung exhaling peace into the city's steel chest, suddenly constricted, shadows deepening into threats in the bruised twilight. A backward glance, swift, involuntary. A silhouette melting behind the bole of an ancient oak. My evening ritual, the unwinding of the day, had just twisted into a primal hunt. My name is Elara. Running isn't just motion. It's the dissolution of self. The body a vessel cut in through air, breath a tide washing the mind clean. The city's clamor recedes, the edges blur. Therapy forged in sweat and stride, an escape velocity achieved after days chained to a desk. This sprawling green heart, nestled within the city's grid, had been my sanctuary since I arrived 3 years prior. Its arteries, paths wide and winding, were mapped onto my memory. From the bright, peopled entrances to the hushed, arboreal veins deeper within. Evenings usually found me tracing the illuminated, safer circuits. But today the weight of the world demanded the deeper quiet, the untrodden corners. A siren call to solitude I would curse before the night was out. The sun bled westward, painting the paths in long, ephemeral strokes of gold and violet. The day's human tide ebbed, joggers and strollers retreating homeward. I drank the stillness, the cooling air a balm, and plunged down a favored, leaf-strewn trail. Perhaps 2 miles dissolved beneath my feet before the wrongness pricked at me. A subtle shift in the air, the psychic weight of unseen eyes. Paranoia, I chided myself. City nerves, but rounding a curve cloaked in rhododendrons, I heard them, footfalls ghosting my own cadence, slightly offbeat. Faster. My own pace quickened, an instinctual flight response. They matched it. My heart hammered, no longer from exertion but from a cold dread blooming in my chest. Another glance, a shape 50 yards back, mirroring my speed. Then the definitive crack of that twig. No fellow runner, no chance encounter. Pursuit. Visceral panic clamped down, alone. Deep within the park's labyrinth, the light failing fast. No witness, no savior near. Fragments of long-forgotten self-defense drills surfaced like flotsam. Keys as claws, eyes, groin, the counterintuitive cry of fire. Futile thoughts if proximity wasn't granted. I broke from the path, plunging into the thickening woods. A desperate gamble. Branches lashed, skeletal fingers tearing at my skin, my clothes. Lungs screamed for air. I couldn't draw fast enough. Behind me, the relentless pursuit, closer now. His stride, longer, surer, devoured the gap. A sharp pivot, a new desperation, back towards the peopled edges, towards the light. If I could just reach the artery, the flow of strangers. But he anticipated. As I erupted from the tree line onto a broader, moon-dusted path, he materialized, blocking the way. The fading light sculpted him, tall, lean, swathed in black. A mask erased his features, leaving only the eyes. Cold, anciently predatory. A hunger there that turned my marrow to ice. Nowhere left to flee, little bird. The voice rasped, a low vibration that resonated deep in my bones. retreating, my gaze frantic, searching for a weapon, an escape hatch. Trapped. Him before me, a steep, treacherous slope behind, dropping to unseen water. A breath, a choice born of sheer terror. I turned, launched myself down the embankment, a chaotic tumble of limbs and sliding earth. Reckless. My only path. A curse ripped through the air above as he followed. The creek, a shock of glacial water, shallow but swift. It stole my breath but ignited a raw survival instinct. Scrabbling up the opposing bank, slick mud clinging, sodden clothes anchors. Running blind now, directionless, only away. The park transformed into a tenebrous maze, every rustle a phantom touch, every snap a prelude to capture. How long? Time fractured. Minutes stretched into an eternity of burning lungs, trembling muscles, fear a relentless engine. Stop and be consumed. Then, salvation's glimmer. Distant lights, the city's edge bleeding into the park's darkness. Safety, achingly close. A final surge ignoring the fire in my side, the agony in my legs. My foot snagged, a treacherous root exposed in the gloom. I fell, hard. Pain, white-hot, lanced through my ankle. Twisted, not broken but immobilizing. His shadow fell across me, his breath heavy but controlled. He hadn't tired. He'd played me. I closed my eyes, bracing for the end. But then, voices, laughter, conversation drifting from the street, a group entering the park's perimeter. His pursuit faltered. He looked from me, prone and helpless, to the approaching sounds. My chance. Drawing on reserves I didn't know I possessed, I screamed, not words but pure sound, a primal, tearing shriek freighted with the night's terror. The voices ceased. Alarm, then the hurried drumming of feet. My pursuer swore, a final sharp sound, before dissolving back into the park's inkwell depths. The aftermath unfolds in flashes. The strobing blue and red, the calm efficiency of paramedics, questions swimming in a haze of shock. Hospital lights, the sterile scent, diagnoses, exhaustion, dehydration, a badly sprained ankle. The police, patient but pragmatic, taking notes, promising patrols, acknowledging the phantom nature of my attacker. Days bled into weeks, the city I'd embraced now a landscape of potential menace. Every shadow breathed threat, every passerby wore a mask of suspicion. Running, the very act that defined my freedom, became unthinkable. The park a haunted territory. Yet, slowly, painstakingly, aided by therapy's quiet work and the bulwark of friends, I began stitching myself back together. Self-defense became not a forgotten drill, but an ingrained discipline. Pepper spray and an alarm became extensions of my awareness. And eventually, the rhythm returned. Tentatively at first, never alone, never straying from the lit paths. He was never found, that shadow with predatory eyes who still stalks the edges of my sleep. But the fur he planted, while present, does not govern. I survived. More than survived, I endured. The rose continues, not just on pavement, but within. And I run, knowing the terrain can be treacherous, especially for a woman alone, but armed now with resilience, with strength, determined that fear will not cross the finish line first.